Welcome to MIMI'S Sketchbook. Today we're going to talk about the anatomy of a daffodil and how we can draw a daffodil from all different angles. So get a lot of paper, get your pencil, make sure you have your eraser, and let's give it a go. So before we can get down to drawing a detailed daffodil, we have to talk about the structure of a daffodil and how we visualize it as an artist. And we have to break it down into simple shapes and parts so that we can draw a daffodil confidently in any direction. So our daffodil is based on a cylinder. And a cylinder, we find cylinders everywhere around us. Cylinders are in our fingers, are cylinders. In a tree is a cylinder. A cup is a cylinder. Everywhere you look are cylinders. And cylinders are basically parallel lines with a round that are joined by a round area here, the round opening. And we have to know how to draw that cylinder in any position. So we're going to draw a circle, and I want to talk to you about a circle for a minute. How do we know we have a circle? Practice it. Practice it. And our circle has these perpendicular lines in the middle and a center axis. And we want to have this line equal to this line, our horizontal line equal to our vertical line. And we can measure it. We can measure it to see. But after you practice it enough, you're going to be able to judge if it's a circle. If it's something natural we're drawing, we don't want it to be absolutely perfect. There's variations on it. Another little tidbit about our circle is that it fits into a square. Here's our square. And we know a square has 4 equal sides. So this is going to be equal to this, this, and this. All right, what's something else about a circle? If I tip this circle, no matter how I tip it, there's always going to be one side that remains constant. This side that tips on the axis here. So if I have my circle tipping this way, this will be the same. That won't change. If I have my circle tipping this way, and say it's the same object, this. If I'm drawing that width won't change. That's another way I can draw this. This width won't change. I'm looking down into it. This width won't change. Now say these are daffodils. That's what we're drawing. We want to be able to create daffodils drawn in any direction because they grow. You know, when we start to draw them, they'll be tipped in any direction. So it's important to understand, first of all, a circle, and that a circle is based on a equal width and height. Okay? So here's a cylinder, And if we look at it from straight down, it's based on a circle. If we look at it sideways, it has two parallel lines. So let's just stop and think about a circle and parallel lines. Now, if we are going to take our cylinder and tip it, something begins to happen. Do you see how, as I tip the cylinder, the shape of the circle changes, and it gets narrower and narrower as it is tipped away from us. So just like here is looking straight on, when I begin, and I'm going to draw some lines here, because the width of my cylinder doesn't change because I change it, but the height of it does. This stays constant. This never changes as I turn it. You see how that never changes as I turn it? But this, from here to here, definitely does. So if this is my width, and these are parallel lines, okay, then as I begin to tip it a little bit, my circle is going to become an ellipse. It's no longer perfectly round, but it becomes an ellipse. This line is still here. This line is still here. This is the center axis, but this is shorter. This remains the same. Okay, so say I'm going to tip it a little bit more. This width stays the same, but the height is shorter. This is shorter here. Tip it a little bit more. This width is the same. The height is shorter. The center axis remains there. Okay? And then if I am looking straight across, I wouldn't even see this, but this would be the same. The width would be the same. The center axis would be here. Okay. What happens to the height of our cylinder when I tip it? Well, that's going to change too. I don't see any of the height right here because I'm looking directly down into the cylinder. So I don't see any of the height. But as I begin to tip it, we get to see the dimension. So as I begin to tip this here, let's draw another line over here. We're going to have to extend it so I have more room. So our width isn't changing. So here is our, I don't see anything here. But now as I begin to tip it, it's going to be less, start to become an oval or an ellipse. Here's my center axis. And I'm looking down. Now I can be, because it's tipping, it can be either tipping this way or it can be tipping this way. I haven't decided yet which way I'm going to tip it. But get it out of the, to draw it darker so you can see it. But I'm going to put it towards me. Okay, so here are the parallel sides. The parallel sides stay the same. They're parallel, they remain the same. They don't bend. Now, depending on how much I tip it, I'm going to begin to see some depth here. Okay? And this line and this line are going to be somewhat parallel. Here's this top, my parallel sides. Okay, now this line here, I would try to mimic that. I want this to be the same. We have to add a little more curve as this. And then if I could look inside of it, if this is going to come up here like this, if it's transparent, say it's a glass beaker, I would be actually looking down, I'd see this. I would see the bottom of this. This would be my, I'd see down into the bottom. I could see that bottom in there. But the more I turn it, this bottom is going to become invisible. I'm not going to see, it's going to be hidden behind this line here. So right now, say I'm drawing that daffodil, I might see a little bit down into the bottom if I'm looking at it from that angle. Okay, I'm turning it a little bit more. So now the sides, I'm seeing more of the sides, and they're getting a little bit longer. And here's the top. Always imagine this. Always put it in until you can totally imagine this. And here's the bottom. That's there. The same thing is there in my ellipse. Okay? There's my center line, Alrighty? I can no longer, if I'm looking in here, I can't see this. That's invisible to me now. If I put value in here, this would be covered up. I wouldn't see it. But I want to know that that is there. It's important for me to know that that ellipse is there. Okay? Even further, let's get it one more time. Parallel lines on the outside remain parallel. This and this are the same. There's a center axis here. This is the bottom. If I could see through it, I would see this same shape up here. Okay? These lines are parallel. Here's this center axis. Alrighty. Now on a daffodil, here's our opening. And it actually comes in a little bit. Well, if we remember, we have a center axis down here, coming down here. We can position the bottom. Here is this. So here's our trumpet, part of our daffodil. And here's our center axis. It's smaller at the bottom. Now I'm going to create the petals that are surrounding the base of the daffodil. So I continue that line here, and I'm going to build, depending on how wide my petals are, I'm going to create a larger ellipse that is the same shape as this. and this, except it's larger. We're looking at it from the same angle. See that? So we have this set of petals here come out from the base of the trumpet. This is our trumpet. And so we can create this. It's like a disc. It's not flat, but we're going to start it off as flat to help us to position it. Underneath here, if this is the stem coming down here, it has to connect to this base. So there is actually underneath here, whoops, got caught. Underneath here is this, do you see how it connects? It flares out. So this becomes even more of a cone on how it, but it's hidden here by these petals, but still we have to know this is here. There's also this bulge here that's a receptacle, and then our stem is parallel, but it has that center axis going down, so I'm going to build my lines around it so it's parallel. And it becomes like a straw sucking up the moisture. We find that it's this type of stem on a lot of flowers and plants. Okay, so we have some important lines and understandings here. So this is, we also have, and we can extend this out a little bit, the ruffle at the top. And the ruffle is going to be an enlargement here. Depending on the type of daffodil. That is going to come out too, and that is widest here. And it's going to mimic this shape. We still need this shape here. So let's quickly talk about how we would shade something like this. So if we have to give it even more dimension, so if we have light coming here, there's going to be shadow on this side, shadow here, shadow here, and this is highlight. So the light, if it's coming this way, this would be light, but inside of here, this would be shadow. This is the interior of this flower. And this would be shaded. The light would be shining on this inner wall here, but there is a shadow down here on this side. This side would have a deep, this has all ups and downs, ups and downs. So wherever this is light here, there'd be a little shadow in here. It'd be like this. Here's our shape. So if this comes up and down, the light would catch here, but there'd be shadow over here. So, and then here's the inner part. So there'd be a cast shadow inside of here. And this would come around. This was the detail here. Come around, little bits of shadow. But basically, there's shadow here, there's shadow here, And then on this side, because the light's here, there's going to be cast shadow over here on these petals. And these are going to be lighter, and there's going to be the cast shadow over here. All right. There are also some details other details we have to think about. And that is thinking about the petals structure that's on here. So let's just look at this, our petals that come out if we look straight down. This is our center. There's our center. 2 sets of 3 petals. Here's 1. Here's 2. And there's this is the center line of the 3rd. And these petals would open first. So they would radiate out. Well, actually, we can't forget the bottom. Let's put the bottom of our cone in here. Remember that line? This would be centered on that line. So here's 1, here's 2, here's our 3rd petal. And these come out. And if this is the center line, this is the point, and they come back into here. If this is the point, it's going to come back into here. And actually, if you look at that at a daffodil, you would see this is they almost flatten out here at the base of where the daffodil meets the trumpet, where the petal meets the trumpet, it almost becomes a flat line. Okay, so these are the petals that open first, and they're on top, and they're a little more pointed than the ones below it. The ones below it, we're not going to see this part or this part. These are a little bit rounder. This would be 1. It would come out from here. The center line would start from the very middle, the center axis. 1 would come here, and 1 would come here. They're very evenly spaced. So this is helping us visualize them and how they work, how they are grown, how they're diagrammed. Okay, so these are rounder, and these have a little more pointiness to them. So I want to show this idea of how the daffodil is constructed another way. So here's our daffodil. This little cup is going to represent the trumpet. And the flat piece of paper is going to represent the petals. So I'm going to, let's do this here. Draw this, and here's our center axis. Here's this line, the height and the width. And once again, we know this is a circle because this width and the height are equal. So this is the base of our trumpet. Now I want to draw the width of the petals that extend from it. So here's our petals. They reach out. They're approximately the same width as the width of the trumpet. So I'm going to extend this, and I'm going to extend this. These two should be equal. on either side. Let's see if they are. This is a quick way to measure. I can measure from here to here, there to here. So this is that side. So I can draw it in, and if you want to, you can, oops, go from the center to here. There's that width, and there's that width. Now all I have to do is connect the dots. Many times I have 2 sets of 3 petals. So I'm going to put, just for this demonstration, one at 12 o'clock. And then if I divide this into thirds, this would be, this is 3 o'clock, this would be 4 o'clock. Okay, come over here to 8 o'clock. So these are our top petals, and as I've said, they reach in. The top petals are have a little more point and flare to them. So here's one. Start from here. 2. Start from here. Let's look where it comes out on the base of the trumpet. I'm going to leave a little space between them. I've got a little space here, a little space here. Why am I deciding there's a little space? Maybe this one can come over a little bit more. These have to come a little closer. Because I looked at this, and can you see there's a little space? They don't touch. These top petals don't touch when they come out of the trumpet. They leave a little space. So that's what I am doing. I'm leaving a little space. So now I'm going to put in the second petals, and I'm going to do them every 1-2 hours. So right in the middle here. They're going to come up to here at 6 o'clock and at 2 o'clock. So our petals are at every 2-hour intervals on our clock. Now these, I'm going to go from this dot to this dot, and I'm going to stop when it overlaps something, but I'm going to imagine that it comes out here. So I'm starting here, going to do an imaginary line. See if it meets. Yes, it does. Going to come here, do an imaginary. That one's rounder. Start here. Now start to draw. I want these to be rounder. Start here. Does it go in and meet there? There's a reason why I'm coming in to meet this, to make sure that this is angled correctly. Now if I put my funnel on here, and let's do this. I'm going to poke a hole in here. So when you go to draw a daffodil that's turned and tipped and growing in the garden at any different angle, all you have to do is look to see which direction that opening, the circle of the cylinder, is tipped. Draw that oval and keep all the ovals the same dimension. All the oval, just enlarge them and reduce them. And then place your petals in at those points every 2 hours on the clock on your oval. And you will be able to draw that daffodil correctly. Okay, let's give it a go. And if I turn this disc in another direction, like this one is turned, let me just get this out of the way, move it down a little bit so it's across from here. So here's my horizontal line. Here's my center. I want this and this side to be equal. Okay, here's my center. Okay, so I have in here, remember the base where the trumpet meets the petals. So here's the base of my trumpet. It's the same shape as this, but shrunk down. Now that I know my structure is correct, I'm just going to erase that a little bit. Now, I have 2 sets of petals, 3 petals in each, so they're divided in thirds. So here's 1, 2, 3. This is going to be the center line of my petal. And I can give this a little dimension while I'm at it. And the petal actually originates right here in this cone. Remember the cone underneath the trumpet, underneath the petals? It's down here. So the petal really originates down here and it flares up to here. It bends out. So even though this isn't here, I'm going to use this as my beginning point to make my petal graceful, to get the right shape. So I'm going to start it here, and I'm just going to follow this line along, and I'm going to meet it out at the outer point. So that's going to be my target, so that it comes to here and follows in there. So I get this into a graceful line. I'm going to come here, and I can stop here, but in my mind, I'm going to continue on there. If you have trouble visualizing it, just draw it in. This one, this is the outer point. This is the inner point. I'm going to start. Can you see that's starting to get some dimension? And I'm using that S curve. S curve. S curve, S curve. Alrighty. Now we have our second set of petals. So let's put one here, here. This would come here. This would come over here. All right, and if these are underneath, so even though they're underneath, I'm going to start it here, and these are a little bit rounder also. So I'm going to start a little bit rounder and make sure my line continues over there. Continues in. Here's this outside. This is the inside. I want to make it a little bit rounder and continue here. Stop, stop, but visualize it coming in. Stop. Okay, here's the outside point. I'm going to round her. Does it come to here? It's going to come up here. I can do an imaginary couple of lines before I draw it in. So here are my petals and how I got them. You use this diagram of what's happening inside of the mechanism of the flower to help you get it correct. It's always there. You want to know it so you can draw correctly, so you know what you're doing. You're not guessing at where you're putting and placing and why you're doing it. the petals and the structure. You need the diagram of the structure in your head and draw it a number of times so you can get an idea of what you're doing. It makes some sense to you. Okay, that's our lower petals. Now, we do have the trumpet. We've got that trumpet, remember? So we've got this tipped and our trumpet comes up, and I don't know if you can look at it the same, but I'm looking at it to get an idea of how high this trumpet is here if I have it turned in this angle. So I'm going to put it, got my center axis, get that center axis in there, and I'm going to bring it down. This is going to be my stem. So my trumpet, it should be straight. Center axis. So my trumpet needs to come up. Actually, I don't know how it got way out there. So here's my center. Here's this inner ellipse. That's the base of my trumpet. So I want this to be the same as this right here. Okay? And this shape, I'm going to try and replicate that opening. Remember this? Put this in, got that in. This helping me to measure and compare these angles. I need to put this back in. I can. Okay? So I can visualize it. Now when I feel that looks pretty good, I can erase this. I can erase this. Okay, and I need my ruffle. So my ruffle is going to go around here. And this should be the same as this right here. If I go back in here, this is another ellipse up here. And the ruffle comes around. Let's look at the ruffle. Here is the ellipse, and if we look at the ruffle going like this, that's fine. It goes up and down. We're looking across it. If we're going here, looking across it, it's up and down. It's wider here, about the same here, same. They're not perfectly symmetrical. They vary, but when you start to turn the corner, we're going to see less of the width. Here we're just going to see kind of a little side view, less, and then more of the ups and downs. Okay. Now what happens when our daffodils are turned? They're going to turn. They can turn this way. They can turn this way. But nothing changes. This doesn't change. This doesn't change. The position of the petals don't change, but we're drawing them at different angles this way. They turn. But we have to know how to draw them like this, and we have to know how to draw them from all these different angles here. So that's all for today. And I encourage you to practice, go through all these steps. Hopefully you've been drawing with me, sketching with me all the way along. And the more you do it, the more you are going to get it, and it will become easier and easier and second nature to you. So I hope you subscribe. This is part 1 in how to draw a daffodil. Next time we'll get into more detail and shading and painting and creating a composition with daffodils. So thank you for joining me. Subscribe so you can get part 2, and I look forward to joining you again. Okay, bye.